everybody. So I repeat myself quickly because you obviously didn't hear. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining the live stream or for watching this recording whenever you are watching this. So it's good to have you, Michael. It was great to meeting all week last week. So we were at DevOps last week. Hi, John. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Hi, John. Yeah, so I really enjoyed also spending the time, and DevOps was really a blast, right? So we had the conference had 3,600 people, and so many discussions and so many questions, and we actually worked on the DevOps schedule as well. And I'm almost done doing this really gigantic blog post where I go into the schedule, GraphQL, Spring, Quarkus, Micronaut, and so on. So
okay, cool.
Hopefully I'll get this done later today, and then we can get it out. But speaking of schedules, right? So that's also a topic for today.
That's the topic for today. Yeah, there is something, and let me. You've probably all seen the banner at the bottom of the screen, which is,
Notes is coming.
It's coming. Notes is coming. So I'll switch it off for now. But go and register for Notes. So it's on the 16th and 17th of November. If you watch this on YouTube and on Twitch, you can do !notes, or you go to r.neo4j.com/notes-2022, and then you are at the registration page and can check out the agenda, check out speakers, and register for the event. And we'll do that in a second, I guess. I wanna do a quick overview because we're gonna be touching AuraDB free, which is the free plan of AuraDB. I feel probably lots of people watching this already know what's going on and what is AuraDB free, but still we usually pick a data set and we discuss a little bit what's about this data set and what are the important points and where would we what would be interesting for us as users, what kind of queries would we run against it, and what would we see as interesting outcome. Could be recommendations, could be some insights, could be some visualizations, could be anything. And then we would then import this data set, query with the questions we determined before, and then have some fun with it. AuraDB free is the free offering of AuraDB. So you can go also, if you're watching this on YouTube and Twitch, !Aura, or I'll put it in chat as well. If you go to neo4j.com/Aura or to this one, dev.neo4j.com/discover Aura, you get to get your own Aura instance. It's free for you forever. You only need to register with your email address. Super easy. And you get 200,000 nodes, 400,000 relationships, Neo4j data import, and Neo4j browser, and Neo4j Bloom, all in one hand, basically, if you also check out the workspace. So it's very easy, very, very good. And it still says citations here, so I'm sorry I didn't update this. It should say nodes. So I'll switch over to...
And node schedule this time, right? Like last time we did node sessions. And this time we want to look at the time information and the schedule as such, which is a little bit more structure. And then we can also look at what does it mean, for instance, to add an attendee to our graph, and then basically or a bunch of attendees, and then can we actually generate recommendations for these attendees, right? So we can basically pretend to have a bunch of attendees in our database, and then basically see, okay, if 2 or 3 attendees registered for some, or let's say 20 attendees registered for some talks, can we, for a new attendee, give them basically a recommendation after they kind of selected 1 or 2 talks, what else they should see as such as well. And perhaps we should mention as well, if you register for nodes, there will be a second AuraDB free instance available for people that attend.
Good point. Yeah, so that's a super interesting perk. So you get 1 AuraDB instance if you register for the service, and it's no limitations except for the one I just shared earlier. But you if you want a second one for any reason, you will either. I mean, if you want a second one, you have to pay for it. If you want to change the data, you can obviously always delete your existing free, erase it, and install a new one. It's free as you like to handle it. But with registration for nodes, you have the availability or the ability actually to register for a second AuraDB free instance. So you get 2 instead of 1.
Yeah, which is
That's
good.
pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So that's a perk. Besides all the learning at the conference, so we'll
exactly
see how many talks you have at the conference and what kind of topics you have at the conference. But besides that, we also have the like the extra perks as well.
Yep.
Exactly. Super. So should we get started? So it's already my screen, right? So
it's already your screen. Yeah, I switched it
seamless switch. By the way, if you're interested in more, we also have kind of some sections on why should you attend nodes. Our keynote, which is really awesome. So I saw a sneak preview of it, and it's really cool keynote talk. If you want to share it with your friends, we have prepared a tweet that you can just click on, and then it tweets it out for you. Bunch of featured speakers and some featured talks as well already. In the back end, we are also adding the full agenda. So later this week, hopefully, we'll have the full agenda online as well, so that you can then basically, if you're registered, you can start pulling together your sessions too. And Alex didn't mention it, but he actually organized the workshops
yes.
of the Road to Nodes workshop. And so actually this week already 2 of the workshops.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're interested, or if you have someone who should get up and running with Neo4j, these 2 workshops are really good for people that are starting out. So introduction and healthcare analytics with Neo4j is really good. Both are really good topics for getting started with Neo4j. So definitely share it with your friends if you're already well into Neo4j. But then from next week, we have some more advanced topics. So that might be even something for more advanced folks as well. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's like it gets more complex or more for more advanced users as we go. I'll post a link in chat so you can have a look at it.
Okay, cool. So what I did is the following. First I created an Aura instance, which is running here, just freshly created. I also downloaded the credentials file, so we have username, password, and connection URL locally. And I wanted to pick up from last times. So I actually wrote this blog post. Perhaps Alex, you can share this as well. The blog post from week 35. So this was kind of the sessions, and today we look into the schedule, right? And so last time we basically already exported the sessions from Sessionize and imported it into Neo4j with data importer, and that's where we want to go back to. And then what we want to do is kind of add the schedule information as well, and then see what we can do with the data in Neo4j itself. Right. So if you want to get started with this blog post, then you can kind of have a look, and then we take it from there. So I basically did the same. We have the sessions and the speakers in a Google spreadsheet, and I just downloaded them as CSVs, so we can use it with data importer. But this time, the sessions have 2 extra fields, or 3 extra fields, which is the room and this schedule, basically between the start time and the duration as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back to data importer, I can now add my 2 CSVs here. So I just opened the data importer file from last week, and I just added my 2 CSVs, and you see that the non-mapped elements are room and the schedule information. We can actually go back and look at like how did we map it last time. So for the session, we mapped the CSV file, and then we had like session ID, title, description, and so on, level, prerequisites, topics and so on. One thing that we called out last time was that some of these fields are comma-separated lists, so we need to post-process them because data importer doesn't yet allow us to do like these kind of post-processing. So we'll take some of these fields like topics or individual use cases and extract them basically as individual fields as well, speaker IDs as well. So, and what we can now add
that's
is
something we have written up in or you have written up in the blog post.
In blog post,
so,
yeah, and we actually steal it from the blog post. So today, I just copy and paste the statements from the blog post. It starts somewhere here, I think, and then we just go over it and do it. Okay, and for the speaker, similar, we took the speaker's file and selected all these pieces of information from the speaker. That has not changed since last time as such. So the new thing is the time information, right? So what we can do easily is basically to add the two fields to this session itself. So we could say basically we add scheduled add and the room to the to the session itself. That's one thing that we can do. But what I was also thinking about, could we actually do something like a time slot, right? So where we say we have here like a slot that we want to basically use to connect all the sessions that are happening in a certain slot. So we would say session is happening in the slot. And then we have basically also how do we do this? Actually, good question. Because you have also the 3 rooms as well, right? So we could actually either connect the slot to the room, right?
Or
so we have here like a room, and we could also connect the session to a room, right? So we have all these options. So let's try how far we get here, right? So this is live. So we'll just see what happens here. So for the slot, we basically just take the scheduled add.
And then, by the way, it's already marked as green because you added it to the session. If you only do it, I mean, as long as you map it somewhere, it gets this green checkbox. So that's
and there's another thing that happened really just now. A recent change in data importer is actually that it automatically pre-fills the relationship details if it can determine basically the stuff automatically, right? So because we had from the same file the session and the slot, so it can actually determine this already, and which is
then it knows. Okay, that's very cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So for instance, also if you put in the room here from our session and we just select the room here, room. Let's see, and it also fills in automatically. Can you see that? So it's pretty cool. And here we would also say that this session is in the room, and so it automatically pre-fills it as well. So I don't need to do anything.
It's getting easier and easier every time we do this.
Exactly. I mean. Exactly. Yeah. So these slots are now across rooms. That's something that we need to remember, right? So it's not like one slot per room, but one slot across rooms. So I would basically have the same time slot in the 3 rooms as such, right? Okay, and so the slot is just the start time. I just put in the start time because the sessions have different runtime. So we have the runtime here as an integer, right? And we can actually turn this into an end time as well by adding a duration in post-processing. That's something that we can also do, right? Okay, so with this, we should be actually ready to go. And let's run the import. Actually, we should have previewed it. Let's do this quick. So we can actually click on preview, and it will pretend to do an import, and we see like an visualization of what this looks like. We have our 3 rooms, right? Like advanced, intermediate, and beginner. Our 3 tracks or rooms as such. And then these are the blue ones are our slots. So we should have around 18 slots or so, or perhaps 20 slots with all the lightning talks. So does it show here how many slots you have? No. Does it? No. And then we have the talks are the green ones, and the blue ones, the purple ones are the speakers as such, right? So we have like speaker information here, right? So this looks good, and then we could just say run import here as such, and it should do the import. And so we see for each node kind of what statements it created for creating the constraints, and then also the data import. And then we can basically start querying this. So it goes over to query, and here now we see our data is now in our graph, right? And the model looks a little bit more involved than last time, because now we extracted additionally these kind of slot information and the rooms as well. But we actually are going to add more nodes to our graph, because we want to do this post-processing, right? So we said some speakers need to be taken from a comma-separated list. So we have basically, for those talks that don't have speakers yet, we basically take the comma-separated list in this session in the speaker IDs and turn this into an so here we can actually look what it looks like.
So it's exactly say what it does. It takes, sometimes we have more than one speaker for a session, and data importer does not yet know how to handle this, so it puts them together into a list,
string.
Exactly, and in a string, and we now separate this long string by, I guess, the comma. And
comma and space, exactly. Right.
Comma space, exactly, and make two individual nodes, or three, I don't know, depending on the number of speakers, individual nodes out of those. That was one mushed together.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just showing what it would look like. So here's our session ID, and here's our list of speaker IDs, right? So then we have a list of speaker IDs here. And in the second statement, we actually apply this. We actually run an unwind. So this list of speaker IDs turns into rows. So if I run this here again, it, instead of a list of IDs over here, it should do one speaker ID each, right? So then each session appears multiple times, and then each speaker is a separate row. And this is what we're going to use to find the speaker and then connect our node to the speaker, which is the last thing here, right? So we basically do the same, and after the unwind, instead of just returning it, we find the speaker with the speaker ID and connect it or them to the node. So it actually went ahead and created, I think in the table view it should say how much data it created. Does it? No, it didn't. For whatever reason, my Zoom is also kind of really zoomed in. Okay. So, but this kind of connected our extra speakers. So you now see that some talks have multiple speakers here, right? So like 3 speakers, for instance, here, and here are like 2 talks that have 2 speakers, and these 2 speakers also give 2 other talks as well, right? So it gets a little bit more interesting, and we do the same for some of the other fields. First, we delete orphan speakers. So if you have any speakers that don't have talks, we get rid of them. So 5. I think these were the workshops that we didn't import. So these were the workshop speakers. Oh, yeah. And now we can do the same for levels. So basically the session level as such. We now have like an intermediate, introductory, advanced, and beginner or expert here. And this is an unnamed level. I think this is the 2 keynotes or so. Yes. And then, or the Q&A, and then we have the same for the use case. So we pull out the use cases into separate nodes as well. So we see all our use cases here. Actually, we can also look at the use cases separately if you just click here on use case. So you see we have things like blockchain, human resources, edtech, manufacturing, biotechnology, pharma, telco, shipping, logistics, and so on, right? Professional services. So lots of different use cases. And we pulled them out and connected our sessions now to the brown nodes, which are the use cases as well. And then the last one is, I think, topics, exactly. So where we do the same, again, for topics, which is like tags or keywords, which will become interesting for our recommendations as well, right? So because topics is something that we would use for actually connecting or relating sessions with each other, right? Yep. Okay, now we have a pretty comprehensive graph in here, right? So if you see, we have now level, room, session, slot, speaker, topic, use case, and a lot of attributes as well, right? So this is kind of our graph that we want to use. And now we can basically look at the data a little bit, right? So for instance, we could say, I want to attend, oh no, remember we talked about kind of computing the end date as well for a session, right? So we have like a session return s dot let's say session ID. What's it called? Session ID. And then we had s dot scheduled at, I think, and s dot scheduled duration, right? These were like our just the session ID, or let's return perhaps the title is probably nicer.
Yep, that's a little bit more clear what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have, for instance, on the 17th of November. So these are all in UTC actually. So it might look very early, 2 a.m. UTC, but that's basically the US time zone as well, right? So that's basically.
I mean, we didn't really mention this, but this year for the first time, Notes will be 24 hours live stream. So that's why the times might seem a little bit weird to some, and depending on where you are. But that also means never mind where you actually based on the globe. We will have something for you at your waking time, which is not like a crazy late or crazy morning session. So you have to I need to get up early for this, or I have to stay long hours. But actually, between your regular day on the 16th or on the 17th, depending on where you live, we will have something going on for you. You can join and watch. So that's why.
And of course, you can also watch the sessions of another time zone if there's something interesting to you.
Of course.
But we also will make all the sessions available. And so we start at 8 a.m. Pacific for the Americas. And then the next, that goes like till 5:20 p.m. for Pacific. And then we start at 8 a.m. Indian time, which is 10:30 Singapore time as well. And then going till 5:20 Indian time, and then we'll have 10 a.m. GMT for Europe, because otherwise we would have conflict with Asia Pacific. So we start a little bit later in Europe, and that goes then to 7:20, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from that.
Something like that, yeah. But I think it's okay
exactly
that Europe starts a little bit late. The people in Europe can potentially also watch something early in the day for North America or for the Americas, and something late in the day for
the other way around.
Asia. Yeah, exactly.
The other way around. So early in the day from Asia Pacific, and later in the day
yes, other way around.
The American.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, John. Now I watched it. He's impressive knowing the time zones, but now exactly, of course, I got it wrong.
So what I wanted to show is this scheduled at. What we can do, actually, we can do some time arithmetics in Neo4j as well. So we can take our scheduled duration and add it to the scheduled add time, right? So we say basically duration plus minutes, I think, which should give us as end time. See, this is as start time. And if I'm not, or can I just say minutes 15? I think it's. Let's see if it also works. I haven't tried this before, but yeah. Okay, nice. So so you can basically say.
Then maybe let's explore this a little bit, because this is not an epoch. This is.
No, that's actually built in. So Neo4j has date time, local date time data types, and the duration data type. And with the duration data type, you can do also time arithmetic. So for instance, you could say, for instance, if I want to know how long will it be until a session, I can basically, in fact, just say, I want to have date time, which is now, and then subtract this from scheduled add. So I actually know as how long do I have to wait, right, until the session starts. So I can basically just subtract today from the scheduled time, and then I know as a duration type. What did I do? datetime. Sorry. Between. There's a datetime between. Oh, it's duration. Duration between. That's the correct syntax. And then I pass in 2 datetimes, so it's not minus, but it's. So I know that I have to wait 30 days and then a number of seconds or hours, basically, until the session starts, right? So because today is the 17th, actually, can you see that? Actually, today is the 17th, so it's actually. Right, so you can do, and then you get a duration back, and then this duration you can basically also say in days, and then you know how many days in days. Or just complain about duration between days. Here. So that's kind of 30 days to wait, basically, right?
Yeah.
Right. So and sorry for forgetting the syntax. So you can do actually computation on this kind of stuff, right? So which is kind of nice.
Okay.
And that's why we can actually set the end time as an extra field on the session, right? So what we can actually do now here, instead of returning this, we can actually set s dot end time equals our computed end time here, right? So our sessions now have like all the end time as well set, which is quite nice.
Okay.
And
yeah.
So the other thing that we can do actually is, we have our slots, right? So let's look at our slots here. Here, we have all our slots. They have all the daytime information, but they're kind of not lonely because they're connected to sessions and rooms, right? So there's 3 sessions happening at this daytime and 3 at this daytime, and they are also connected to the same room, which is nice. But what we could also do is we can also order them. Order by n dot. I think it's also called scheduled at, right? Yeah. Ascending. Right. So our list that we get back is now ordered, right? So this is kind of the first slot, the second slot.
I wonder if you run this in Bloom and do the hierarchical table layout, if that would then come.
I mean, it's more like a chain, right? So it's more like a direct chain as such of things. Right? So, and they're not connected yet. But what I wanted to say is perhaps you can just connect the slots into a linked list, basically, and then one follows the other. And that's what we wanted to do. So so we take our sorted slots here. We collect them into a list. Right? And then we kind of go over this list in pairs as such and connect them, right? And then we say unwind range from 0 to size of slots -2 as index. This is kind of our index into our list. And then we take slots of index as start, slots of index +1, which is the next one, right, from our collection. As end. And then we can basically create an start, next, and relationship, which kind of connects all our slots into a nice chain as that, right? So that creates 52 relationships. And if I now click on this next relationship here, I see actually a nice chain of events, right? So which gives us from the beginning all the way to the last slot. As such, right? So we can now say is basically, of course, you could always sort stuff by time, but this is also a way how we can basically take the slots and say this is kind of one slot and this is one slot, and then we can basically say in slot, I think we called it, right? And then we say session. You can also see which kind of how do sessions follow each other, right? So we basically can say this next, and so this is 2 slots following each other, right? So that would be like which sessions are attached to these slots. If you limit this to 1, this gives us just one basically next relationship, and then basically the the sessions that are in this slot. So actually, let's. There should be 3 sessions or 2 sessions at the slot. But what we can also do is we can also say, give me like all the slots. So if I don't limit this, this will find always the next relationships basically, and give us all the sessions connected to the slots basically. So you now see like this nice chain. It's like it looks like DNA almost, right? So if you look at this, it's like the blue ones are the
oh, you know what you mean. Yes, yeah.
And then the sessions are like the base pairs basically attached to the long chain. Right. So this is one way of doing it. But the other one that you can do in Neo4j as well is we can just say this is kind of just a long path where we say kind of follow this next relationship further and further and further, and then give me basically for each session for each slot the sessions as well, right? So I can also run it like this, and then it gives me also the chain here as well, right? And so this is a way of how we can say kind of does this session follow each other, or for instance, are these sessions in conflict? So for instance, imagine we pick one session. We pick one session, one random session, let's say with s skip 5 limit 1 return s. This is a random session exploring what's it title relationships between people in ancient Chinese novel. That's from Shiny. Right, so we could look at like what is connected to the session. It has these topics, it has the presenters Shiny, we have a use case, and then there's a slot connected to it. But what happens, we want to also see the other sessions at the same time that are happening at the same time, right? So we basically want to see this from one query. So we would say we find a session, and then basically we just match from the session, we go in slot, or slot, right? And then we want to see which other sessions are at the same time, right? And return everything. This should give us basically, this is our session here, exploring the relationships, and these are the other ones that are at the same time. So for instance, we could say, are the sessions that I want to go to conflicting, right? And that's something that you could express as well. So imagine you had 2 sessions, you could say, I don't want this to be true, right? So if I have 2 sessions, then I could say, for instance, where not exists. And then I'd say basically, I don't want to have a path like this to exist, basically, right? So, and then I could make sure. So for instance, if I had like 2 sessions, let's see, we take the session ID. Where's our session ID? Here's one session ID. Our session 1. And then we have session 2. This is S1 or S, and then we have S2. Our second session would be, let's say this one here. Then we can basically say this should never return anything, right? So because this is not, because they are conflicting, this should return nothing, right? I just moved here, and it doesn't return anything, right? So because they are both are conflicting, right? And if I picked another session, then they would basically allow me to return this, right? And or I can actually say optional match here, and then it should, does it, with S1, S2. It's not S, S2. But still doesn't return anything because this where hard filters out the things hard, basically, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But this is a way of how I can use the slot concept to. There was a short disconnect, I think.
There was a short disconnect, yes, but yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that we can do now is basically do recommendations, right? So we already, I think, looked a little bit at the recommendations bit in the first live stream. So we have one session. Let's let's look at our sessions here. Turn s dot title. So Alex, you can pick one that's interesting to you. So you have to say stop at some point.
Yeah, stop.
Okay, so Ripple XRP ledger with ETL, right? So this is basically title. This is our session if you're interested in. Oops. Our session if you're interested in. So this should give us this session, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now Alex really liked the session and he wants to see more sessions like this, right? So we can say, okay, there's some other sessions that have some overlap with our session, right? So we would say this other session is our recommendation session. And this has some whatever I can call this overlap or something like that with our session, right? So and this overlap could be something like a topic, could be like a slot or a room. It could be something like the speaker and or Neo4j use case and so on, right? Or the experience level. So we could actually say, okay, which of the overlaps are we actually interested in, right? So we would say we don't want to have. Let me call this X so that I don't have to type so much. We don't want to have rooms and not slots, right? As overlay, and then I think that's probably it. Perhaps the level and not X level. And then we just return our recommendation title. And then we also count how often do they overlap, right? How often is there a relationship between our session that we're interested in and the recommendation session? So we basically just count this as frequency. And then we just say order by frequency limit descending, of course, right? Descending number 5. And this should give us a bunch of recommendations. So there's not so many overlaps actually for your session, which is interesting. Perhaps, yeah, because you have a bunch of blockchain talks, but perhaps
I think don't. Maybe you remove the level, because I think if it's the same level, I think that's okay. I think I wouldn't mind the same
so
level as a recommendation. Right?
Yeah. So there are some others that have overlaps. So and here we see kind of the frequency, but we don't know why this is overlapping, right? So we can. This could be an additional.
We know there is something that is in relation, but we don't know what it is exactly.
It could be the speaker, it could be the topic, it could be the use case, but actually, let's see what this is. So we basically get our recommendation. We count how often this recommendation came across. Then we take our label of our overlap, the first element of the labels array as type. And then we have probably something like x dot. Good question. What is it? Name. And then we, instead of counting this, we're summing up the counts here. And then collect our type, name, and count into as overlap. Right? And then I mistyped something. Rico count as count. Labels. So we see here why did it overlap. So this is topic and level overlap, right? So it's both an advanced talk. Oh, because it's an advanced talk, there might not be so many overlaps as well, right? So perhaps we need to pick another one.
We can pick another one.
Let's see, where is our session return as the title. Perhaps you can see this. So education.
Perhaps the CloudSpring one.
Yeah, let's take the cloud. So that's the healthcare one. And in principle, we should have a bunch of other healthcare topics as well. I see here 4 overlaps, right? So this is much more. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the details here. It's a little bit unfortunate. we can pull it over, but it.
And so that's a early access workspace problem.
Yeah.
Because if you run the same query in desktop, for example, you have the
browser,
ability to browser, exactly. You have the ability to change the width of the rows or columns.
Yeah, exactly. So we could look into the detailed thing here. Here we see basically what's our overlap in the raw data. But it's not so easy to read after all, right? So, but in general, this gives us then some breakdown of the why such, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to do is kind of pretend we have a bunch of attendees, right? So let's create a bunch of attendees, right? So we let's say we have 1,000 attendees in our notes event, right?
By the way, this was good fun at Devox. So we had the same query at Devox, or a similar one, and we talked lots of people. And the opening question I usually asked when somebody came to our booth, I said, "Hey, which session are you just coming from?" And I typed it in, and then I said, "Hey, do you think maybe this or this other session could be interesting?" And then some of them were really surprised and said, "Okay, actually, I hadn't thought of this. This is something I'll look at." Yeah.
Actually, you know what you should do? That's actually a good point, Alex. You should actually show how to do this in Bloom as a scene action. So in Bloom, we can have our where's our?
Did you refresh?
No, I just create a new perspective. Create new perspective. Generate. Yep. And then so we can basically do something like. What did you want to do? You wanted to have slot is connected to slot, basically, right? Something like this.
Yeah.
Which is our long chain. Let's see if this works. And then we should be able to see this in different layouts. Good question. Why didn't it work? Okay, this is kind of our sample graph that works, right?
Yeah.
But the slot to slot, it didn't like, for whatever reason. Levels also work. Slot, tab, slot, tab, enter. Here's our slot. So just needed to connect, basically. Right, so you see the kind of long chain of things, and then we could say slot to session, tab, and then it would do the same thing that we had before, right, with the long chain of events. Right? What we could actually do is we can go to this slot and take these two slots, basically. So we have this and this. We right-click and say dismiss all the others. And then we can say show this path. Unfortunately, it doesn't just follow the next relationship, so it will probably go via a room. Yeah, see, it goes via a room here as such, right? So, but in general, you could say if I excluded rooms or so, then
exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, but then you could basically also get a change. So we could exclude the rooms from the categories, and then it should actually show us the full. Anyway, what I wanted to do, sorry for the. So we still have our scene action. So a scene action is something that you can do in Bloom, which is quite a new feature, which you can do on selected data. So basically, we can say recommendations as such, right? So we take the session where ID of S in node IDs or in nodes, I think. Right? And we just want to use this for session, right? And then discuss our recommendation that we had. And instead of returning recorder title and like all this breakdown, we just basically say we return collect X slots and the count as frequency here. So it's much simpler. And this gives us the top 5 recommendations and slots, basically, as such. And then we can return that as such. Actually, to also get relationships, it's probably better to get the paths here and connect the paths into this collection. So, and if I use the saved action now on a bunch of sessions, so let's say we get a bunch of sessions. For instance, let's say level beginner. Can we do this? Level, is it name? Beginner? This omit
I don't
protocol. Just like me. So session level name colon beginner. Okay, we just get a bunch of sessions. Okay. You just get a bunch of sessions. Come on. I think the background querying of Bloom overloaded our instance a little bit. Come on. There they are. So and we just select a bunch of them like these here and dismiss the rest. Dismiss others. And then we can zoom in. So, and actually we want to have for session, we want to have a proper text, which is not our ID, but title, right? So our title of the session should be, right? And then imagine we really like introducing nodes for administrators here, right? And Neo4j5 for administrators. Then we can here in scene actions, you can click on recommendations and it should run our recommendation. And then we get basically our recommendations of top 5 recommendations. And then we see basically what is the path to these recommendations, right? So if I pull it over here, I actually see why they have been recommended, right? So I basically see kind of what is the path connecting them, right? Some have the same, like the expert or advanced level. Some have the same speaker here, right? Speaker should probably also not have an UID, but a proper name. First name, last name, right, John. And then there are also shared tags as well, and use cases general, right? So and then we could kind of go here and say, now we want to look at the genealogy, so we dismiss the rest and say for this one, what is the recommendations for this one, right? So and then I see basically similar recommendations, right? And right, so which is kind of really nice that you can apply this interactively in Bloom. So you can take a more complex query that you've developed in Neo4j browser for use case, and then you make it available to your end users as a scene action here in Bloom, which is really nice. It also works with multiple nodes. So for instance, if I had, let's say, these two selected, then I also can do the scene action for both of them as well, right? And then it gives me for both the recommendations.
Does it give you? Oh, okay.
Gives you the. I think it's even the joint recommendations for both, right? So it's kind
of.
I
just wanted to say, I think that seems more like joint recommendation, not a double then.
Yeah, because in the query we are looking at the total recommended, so we don't group it by. We don't group it by input, so we would have to do the scene action here. This one would have S comma to basically have it by. So we need to basically pull S along. Otherwise, it aggregates it across all sessions, basically. Right. So if I do it like this and we run this again, dismiss others, scene action recommendations, it should give us much more.
Right. Okay.
So there's some overlap still, right? Because they also were both part of a recommendation set, but now there are more recommendations here. Or actually, the limit is the same, but so it's also 5, but there's more difference basically between them as well.
Okay.
And cool. I mean, if you want to do an internal limit, you would kind of move this into a subquery or something like that, right? So then you can basically call with S, and then you just turn star here at the end. This is now with a subquery, and this should actually work. What variable S already declared? Oh, should look, I think. So now we should get 10 back. So this is live coding, as you can see, right? So this is all live and in color. So are there more? Yeah, that's more than before.
More.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, right.
Yeah, perfect.
So that's how you can do also some advanced. So we did some advanced Cypher in the intro to Aura. Okay, good job, Michael. Anyway, so we have a few minutes left. So I wanted to create some attendees.
We will store that code in the write-up, and then you can also do advanced Cypher.
Yeah, exactly. So we as for our attendees, so we create an attendee node. So we can just create attendee. They have an ID, and we don't need to give them a name because it's anonymized data as well, right? Sorry. And then for each attendee, let's say they attend like 8 sessions or something like that, right? As whatever. We don't need to. This is just that we get 8 of them. And then we say we match a session with as skip random times 100 limit 1. That's kind of our one session, and then we basically merge attendee attends as or favorites, or imagine you're building your agenda, right? And then so we create 1,000 times 8, so 8,000 relationships between attendees and sessions, right?
Yeah. So is this okay? So maybe you do favorite instead of attends, or is it meant for a?
Yeah, we can do a favorite.
Yeah. Stars or something.
For it. Right. We could even add stars here if you wanted to, right? So we could say stars is integer rand 5 plus 2 or something like that, right? So random times 5, right? Times 6. And this should not be as part of the merge. This should be later. Oh, let's leave off the stars for now, right?
No, I just meant stars instead of favorite as a relationship name. Yeah.
Okay, so start, right? So between create and unwind, we still need it with star. So this goes now off and should create 8,000. No, 1,000.
Yeah, it did limit 1. Is this the limit 1? No.
Let's see. Let's do this. So let's do this as a subquery, basically. Okay. But now it had only 100 relationships. Why does it only have 100 relationships? We have 1,000. Let me just delete the attendees real quick. Delete. Yeah. So, okay, let's look at this again. So let's do a merge here instead of a create. So for each attendee, we do 8 rows, and we basically create, find a random session, skip to integer. This should be a skip. And then should basically add this from the attendee. This actually looks okay to me. But it didn't add relationships. What did I do wrong here? So this creates our 1,000 attendees. Then we do another 8 rounds, and then for each attendee we find a session, a random session, and connect them. And I don't know what I did wrong here. Looks okay.
The underscore doesn't matter.
We cannot call it dummy or whatever. It doesn't matter. But we find a session. And we take one where we skip and limit 1. So 8 times per subquery we should do this. So it should actually create 8 relationships per, or at least, if random is not always the same here, it should actually create a bunch of sessions. Let's do this differently. A comma sessions of 2 integer times size of sessions. One random out of this collection here as and then sessions. Okay, this looks better. Like 7,700 relationships. So I have to check why the other thing didn't work, but it should have worked. So now we have basically attends relationship or start relationships here, right? So the dark green one is an attendee, and then they have start a bunch of relationships, and you see already there's some overlap as well between them, right? So if you do limit 100 here, then we basically see there's some overlap between attendees. So, and imagine you're now a new attendee, or we pick one of these attendees, right? And we want to see kind of who of the other attendees is similar to me and what did they select, right? So we basically pick our first attendee, ID 1, and then we basically look at what have they favorited. Start.
Right?
Return P. So this is our first attendee, right? And then we can say, what have other attendees that start the same? What do these look like? That's kind of this, right? So we basically have our attendee. Oh, sorry, should probably limit it. So these are a bunch of attendees that have all started this one talk, basically, as such, right? So this is not so helpful. So this is basically more overlap, right? So that is attendees that have kind of overlap between talks. Right? And what we can now do is basically to say, okay, these attendees that start the same talks that I was interested in, what else have they start that I have not? Right? So that's kind of the typical collaborative filtering thing, right? So they start the same here that as I did, and then I want to see what have they start basically that I haven't also express, right? Where not access a start S2 or reco. You can call this recommendation again, right?
Yeah.
And so I should not have started this already. And this is again, and how often did this happen across all the different people? So I get basically the recommendations for me back, right? So I can basically return the title. And this is basically people that have started the same stuff that I had also started these that I hadn't started, right? So, and then basically this gives me an
so
person user-based or collaborative filtering recommendation as well, right? And then I could also check, okay, does any of these recommendations basically conflict with my time slots? That's what I actually also wanted to say is basically
okay, now
right? Because our sessions are in a certain slot, right? Right, and then I just take take these. So I just want to have my my slots as a list. You can do this as very. How do we do this? Call with s. Turn collect slot as slots. So we have our slots here, and so we add just a second here, and not or none of slot and slots where exists recommendation is in the slot. Right. So we don't want the recommendation being in any of our slots, basically. And so this was our first exception. I should not have started this already. And then none of my slots that I have already basically filled with my talks should have a conflict with this recommendation, right? So, and if I run this, then it complains a little bit. Let's see if this still works. Yeah. So, and then I get these. So it seems that they have no conflict with my slots, basically, that I had selected as well. Right.
Yeah.
So this is the way how we can basically.
Because then yeah, this is very helpful, because then I can say, okay, I have already started to build my schedule. These are recommendations that fit my that are not overlapping with what I have currently already built, and can then say, okay, this session works for me as well, and I don't have to decide if I want to throw something out which I already thought interesting and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I just realized we might need to, because this is per session, we might need to put in the like this here. So we need to basically do it for all the sessions. So, but it doesn't make a difference here, right? But now our slots, and we probably can do distinct slots as well, so it's not so much. So again, a little bit more advanced cipher, but I think this shows how powerful the model is, and then I can do really advanced things as well, right? And actually, the cipher is not too hard, right? So we basically find our attendee. We can actually say we find all the slots for the attendee, and then we basically find the talks that the attendee had start, and the other people. So their peer. This is kind of their peer group, right? So that's the peers, right? What did they also, if they start the same, what else did they start that the attendee has not started? And none of his slots is already basically taken for this recommendation. So it's almost English that you can read here, right? So which is really nice. And then we just return this as recommendation as such. Cool, and we're already over time. So that was really quick today.
Already over time. Maybe we can answer one more question. Michti asks this in chat. Can we create a query telling me the sessions to attend in sequence from 9 to 5 on a certain topic? I think that's pretty.
That's a really good one. So we basically say this is our slot, which starts at a certain time. Let's imagine this is our first daytime for the day, or let's just return one. Imagine this is our 8:30 Pacific, 8:30 UTC is our slot. That's our start slot, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we say scheduled at is our start slot here. So we can just create a date time from this date time. That's one slot, right? And then I want to have like the 5 next slots. Slot 2, right? So this gives us our slots, and then we basically go from our slots. We can actually go from 0 to 5. So the first slot is included actually as well. And then from this slot, we basically get our sessions slot, right? Session, and then we also want to limit the topics topic, and which is topic. And then we say where t.name in, and then we could, for instance, say a list, for instance, graph data science, right? And then we just return basically the session.title.
Sessions. Yeah.
And slot to.scheduled at and session title, basically, right?
Yeah.
And this should give us something, if I have not misspelled something. So let's see. We have a start slot. We have sessions with a topic where the T
maybe
name, was it name
topic.
actually on the topic? Topic.name, graph designs. This looks okay. So what did I do wrong here? Let me just remove this start time here. Perhaps I chose something where there's no in slot. Session is in slot. Oh, here, because I use S twice. A mistake. You don't need here, right? So because the first slot is unnamed, and keep S here. So actually, it found only one that's kind of following this, right? So because there's probably nothing else, but we can, for instance, add let's say, I don't know, DevOps. No, what else do we have in terms of topics? Cypher. Let's add Cypher. See, then there are a few more, and that's kind of the sessions on this in these slots, basically, as such. And then you see that they follow each other as well, right? So that's kind of always the next, as such, right? If there are more than one, we could actually collect them into a list, as such, right? And then do this.
Yeah, or we could present it as a, in what we had in Bloom earlier, as one slot follows the other slot, so we know what's going on. But for agenda planning, I guess this is the more the better representation.
Yeah. And actually, what's kind of funny is if you remember about the Bloom thing that we did, we could also basically do the topics that you basically list the topics in Bloom. You select a bunch and then right-click recommendations or like give me stuff in slots, and then it would kind of take these topics that you have selected as inputs instead of putting in the names here. So you can also have a Bloom scene action as well for this. And I just realized that I'm late for another call, which is really unfortunate.
So that's all right. I think we are at the end anyway. So thank you very much, Michael. Thank you for taking us through this and for showing this and doing a little bit more of an advanced session this time. But the code is, like you said, it's probably easy if you read it and then follow it step by step. It's understandable. Thank you all for watching. I think this is fun. Register for notes. Really do join us then in November. Join the workshops if you want to do some training beforehand, starting this week. And with that, obviously this week workshop starts so on the 19th.
And if you go to the notes registration page, there are all the registration links here for the workshops that you can basically use.
Exactly. Right. And with that, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Michael. Have a good rest of the week. Take care, everybody, and see you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.